Academica Media. You are listening to Charter School Superstars, bringing you the voices of an education revolution.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Doral College. And if you're wondering why I got this smile on my face, it is because we are talking about my favorite topic in education. And it is a topic that we have not talked about nearly enough on this program. My fault. We're addressing it this week. That topic is parent involvement and parent partnerships. So excited to have our guests on this week. Joining us on the program are the Director of Organizing and the Northeast Regional Organizer for the National Parents Union, a network of parent organizations and grassroots activists that advocate for improving the quality of life for children and fostering positive educational outcomes. Our guests recently spoke at the National Charter Schools Conference about crafting parent partnerships in the charter school setting, and you can find out more about our guests' work by visiting www.nationalparentsunion.com. We are happy to welcome Tafshier Cosby and Maritza Guridy on to Charter School Superstars. Hello to you both. Thanks for being on the program.
Hello. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
As I said in my intro, this is my favorite topic. Parent partnerships are everything for charter schools. It is the silver bullet in charter education, dedicated parents. And so I'm excited to hear about the work that the NPU does in this area. The NPU, this is a fairly new organization, right? Can you talk a little bit about how the organization got started?
Sure. So a bunch of parents and advocates and activists from across the country were invited down to New Orleans back in January of 2020. You know, a lot of us, we didn't know what we were doing. You know, they just were like, hey, come on down, come meet your people. You know, in this space, we talk a lot about parents and meeting like-minded parents who are advocates and our people. So we all came together in New Orleans. We had some amazing sessions. We heard from other parents who were fire starters. We actually gave out the first National Parent Union award to our first parent who was active in their community, really making sure that parents' voices were being elevated in the conversation. We ratified ourselves as an official union back in January of 2020, and then COVID hit. And then we kind of had to pivot a little bit, but that's how we got started. There were parents, activists, and organizers from across the country who were invited to this convening of parents, where we talked a lot about what it would look like to build a national organization where parents across the country would feel that support. They would feel like they have other parents who are with them. They would have opportunities to have training and be able to get toolkits and things that they needed to really be on a national lens to be here to support parents across the nation and in Puerto Rico. So that's how we got started.
That's wonderful. And you guys are already doing such great work, particularly with respect to effecting positive COVID-related policies in schools. But I want to reflect first, before we talk about that piece of this, on just the power of parents to affect great educational outcomes. Because time and time again, it's a lesson I've seen as an education advocate that some of the greatest achievements in education, whether legislatively or on individual school campuses or throughout entire school systems, are so often parent-driven, whether it's parent advocacy, parent involvement, parents being active in the process. Parents get stuff done. That's just the way it is. Maritza, can you reflect on that idea of just how when parents roll up their sleeves, either one parent working hard or parents working as a team, they can make big things happen, right?
Parents can absolutely make big things happen. And just like you said, whether it's one active parent or a group of active parents, you can make enough noise to demand change in your individual schools. And imagine what it would be like of those parents at each of the schools in your district all got together and all went to the next school district meeting and made a whole lot of noise demanding change. How do things are going to happen?
I love it. That energy, that enthusiasm, to me, that's the main reason why parents get things done, because even if they don't have like the massive background in education, you know, they work other jobs, that passion, that love for their children, and that just never give up attitude to get things done on behalf of the kids that they love, you gotta move mountains. It's so inspiring. Tafshier, let me ask you this. Can you talk about some of the big legislative achievements in education equity that the NPU is either recently accomplished or is currently working on right now?
So one of the things that we did back when COVID first started was we created a document for parents that parents could actually use to go into their school district when they were having conversations about reopening plans. And it's a parent bill of rights, right? It literally talks about, as a parent, what are the things that you wanted to see in the reopening plan, right? You wanted to make sure there was a plan about safety for your child. You wanted to make sure that there were conversations about what would happen if there was learning loss, right, with reopening your child's school. So that's actually on our website. So we created that parent bill of rights to provide parents with the information. So when they were going in and speaking to their schools about reopening, they would have a document that they could actually use. And we found that in a lot of our states where we have a lot of our members, that the document was actually being used. Parents were presenting this parent bill of rights at school board meetings with reopening sessions. They were presenting them with school leaders. They were presenting them with operations teams. Like, really having this document was helpful to parents so they could have this sheet of information to know even where to start in this conversation about how to reopen schools. One of the legislations that we're working on right now is the right for education to be a civil right, right? For high quality education to actually be a civil right. We know that a lot of the laws regarding education were passed years ago, right? A lot of them haven't been updated, specifically in states, right? We actually did a legislative week, a week of advocacy, where we actually listed, and it's actually on our website, where we listed the education policies for every single state in the union. And some of them haven't been updated since the 1800s. It's 2021. Like, we were just in total shock that some of these education policies were still old. So we're looking to make sure that we are working with families and working with legislators across the aisle, right? We want to make sure that we're working with whoever is in support of making sure that families and children have what they need to make sure that education becomes a civil right. A lot of times we talk about our civil rights as United States citizens, and education a lot of times is at the bottom of the list, right? Even when we're talking about funding a lot of times and where money is going, we have this large infusion of money coming to us in our cities and states because of COVID. But prior to that, when you look at a budget, education was usually the first thing that was cut. But if you make it a civil right, if you make it part of the vernacular of it needs to be up there with the rest of our civil rights that we have, then you won't have education being the first thing that's cut on the budget, because it's a natural right for kids to have quality education, to receive equity in their education, and to make sure that they're learning what they need to learn. Because as parents, right, we can't wait. We only have K-12 goes fast. Before you realize that your kid is gone and they've graduated and they've moved on. So as parents, every single day that our kids are in school, every single year that they're in school, it matters to us. So making education a civil right is really one of the policies that we're really going to be really working on across the nation over the next few years to make sure that we pass that to our legislators.
And to get those things passed, as you mentioned, it's so important to craft those partnerships with legislators, to make those legislators feel like you're their ally, you're a resource to help inform the decision makers about the importance of education and why it needs to be a civil right. And in that same vein of partnerships, I want to get to the topic that both of you spoke about at the National Charter Schools Conference recently, about building partnerships between schools and parents. And I can tell you, most of the people who listen to this program, ladies, are school principals, school administrators, and they'll be the first ones to tell you the importance of crafting partnerships with parents, even bringing parents in on the inside, giving them leadership roles in their school to make positive outcomes happen. Let me ask you, Maritza, do you have any advice for the school administrators listening right now on the importance of crafting partnerships with parents and even giving them leadership roles on a school campus?
I absolutely have something to say about that.
Right.
For all of the school leaders and administrators that listen to this, I need you to just make one thing perfectly clear. You need to be transparent and honest with these families, especially in our urban communities where there may not be a lot of resources. If you find a parent that is very vocal, you can even have a label for that parent. And I say this from experience because I actually had, I've worked in schools before. So behind the scenes, parents, whether we like it or not, we do get labeled. So if you're that parent that is constantly, at the office demanding sort of resolution, perhaps you should befriend that parent, because they can end up being one of the strongest advocates for the school. And as Tafshier was talking about the importance of making sure that educational budgets are not cut, stop making parent and community engagement budgets go away. Do not to be decreased. In fact, demand that it be increased. Because if you're able to form those relationships with your families, your school community, all of the organizations around your school community, it'll be a better school experience for your learners. They'll have a better lasting career because they knew that they got education. It was a mutually beneficial partnership. Parents are assets. We are not adversaries to schools or school leaders. We are your biggest assets. We have talents that if you took the time to get to know us as parents, as people, we'd be your best friends. We'd be at the school volunteering, with all heart. Parents that work at night will say, I'll give you 2 hours in the daytime. Parents that work second shift, I'll come in around noon and help answer the phones for you. Right before after school, the parent that works third shift, before I have to lay down and get a couple hours of sleep, before school that's out in the afternoon, are they available to come in here to help us with, the morning drop or afternoon dismissal? But you have to engage the families, be receptive of their concerns, have meetings that are good for everyone to be a part of. Don't just have morning meetings, have afternoon meetings, have evening meetings, virtual meetings, and even, Saturday meetings when families are home. Become a partner.
Yeah. And it sounds like the lesson I can draw from this is a parent that has the energy and the willingness to talk to the principals, to complain, to critique, and to make their voices heard. They probably also have the energy and the willingness that if you call upon them, they'll take a leadership position. They'll take some responsibility on the school campus. They'll volunteer. Those are usually the first ones who are willing to volunteer. So harness that parent energy for good instead of, as you noted, Maritza, seeing those parents that are criticizing you as an adversary, right?
Correct. I'm sitting here nodding and smiling as you were saying this, because that's and if you feel that you're not being listened to as a school administrator, then yes, also reach out to that parent that has always been there. Reach out to that parent that has had their child at that school for a number of years, because they know the pulse of the families in that schoolyard. Say, hey, have a meeting with them, and then say, hey, can you invite some of those people that you also speak to in the yard that may be upset, or they always have a question and no one seems to be answering their question. And another thing, make sure that you make yourselves available and give out information to your families in a language that they understand. So if your school population speaks more than one language, make sure that you give those families the respect of also providing the information in that home language as well. You will also get a lot more give back from those families that unfortunately feel isolated because of the language barrier. They don't feel included. They feel excluded.
You got to meet the parents where they are. That makes perfect sense. I want to give Tafshier a chance to weigh in on this as well, because I know you were at that panel too. You probably got a few pieces of advice that you could give to the administrators in schools out there on crafting effective parent partnerships. What would you say on that point?
Absolutely. Well, first, everything Maritza said. Maritza said.
I'm with
for
you.
Me, the first thing for me is always create an environment where parents feel welcome. A lot of times what happens is the school environment, parents sometimes don't feel welcome there. They're stopped at the door by the SRO. They don't feel welcome coming into the building. And then you have to also think about, especially parents in under-resourced communities in our urban areas, they have trauma from these same schools that they've gone to. Some of them still have that same innate trauma. But if you as the school leader create a culture of advocacy, a culture where parents feel comfortable coming into the building, then they will. So for me, that's always first. Create that culture, create that opportunity for parents to feel comfortable. And also communication is huge, huge. You know, we get parents, especially during the COVID environment, where there were so many parents that were saying either they got, you know, too much information or not enough information. You know, for the parents who got too much, they complained that it was too much, but then they thought about the alternative, which was to not get enough, right? So make sure that you are finding ways to engage with parents and provide them with communication. Class Dojo is amazing. And this wasn't just an ad for Class Dojo, but I know lots of parents have been using Class Dojo, and it's instant information, right? It's instant to their cell phones. They have that instant communication. They're also able to chat with teachers. They're able to chat with other parents. So communication is super important when you want to get that information out to parents. Thirdly, for me, you know, when you talk about parents in positions of leadership, don't just think about parents in positions of leadership within the school building. Think about parents in positions of leadership on your school board, right? Parents on your school board are going to be really important with thinking about those decisions that have to be made, not just for their child's school or their child's campus, but for the entire school network. You know, as a charter board member myself, you know, I'm an alumni parent of a charter student. You know, being on that board has provided me the opportunity to have parents who aren't there be able to speak through me. You know, when we have those conversations where there needs to be a parent lens when you're making these decisions, right? If you have a parent there, a parent who has a child in the network or even a child who's been to the network, they have experienced what the actual school is like. So they have a perspective that a lot of the other board members do not. They're part of the community. They can speak to the community. They can bring in other parents for conversation. So also think about having a parent on your board, one or two parents who are actually on your board making those decisions for your full network.
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of charter school boards have a lot of success when they have parent representatives on board. There are even some states that require it because they know how important it is to get that parent perspective on your board. I'm totally with you on that. Yes. You can find out more about our guests' work by visiting www.nationalparentsunion.org. You can check out that Parents' Bill of Rights that they put together. So excited to have you both here. I've learned a lot, and I know our administrators have too. Before we let you go, I'd like to ask each of you our final question that we ask every guest on the program. I'll direct it to Maritza first. Maritza, if with the snap of your fingers, you could make any change to the education system, what change would it be?
Pay our success educators what they are worth. You'll be able to train these educators, and then they'll be able to mentor future educators, but pay them what they're worth.
Absolutely. One of my favorite answers that people give on this program. I'm with you 100% on that. Tafshier, same question. Snap of your fingers, you could make any change to the education system. What change would it be?
This one's hard because you're talking just one? I
know. And I understand I'm talking to advocates. Your job is to make lots of changes to the system. I know, it's not fair.
I mean, I guess I would say, you know, create those authentic partnerships with parents, like authentic partnerships, ones that really work with your school community to make sure that you're bringing the community, making the school itself a community, you know, like not just a building inside of a neighborhood. It's really a community. It's a place where families feel comfortable. It's a place where kids can learn, but it's a place where everybody can come to have what they need, resources, conversations, community. Really make sure that you're building that community within your school. So I think that's it. And I would love to see that in every community across the United States where it's a really authentic partnership and community feel to these schools.
Right on. It was a pleasure speaking with both of you this week. I'm so inspired by the work that you all do. Keep up the great work for our kids. And if there's ever anything you need, don't ever hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for having us. This was awesome.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on, and thank you all for listening to Charter School Superstars.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.